Hello, everybody. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about how I got a job at a vet clinic at 15 years old and potentially give you some tips that could help you as well. And lastly, I'm going to talk a little bit about how I worked my way up to position of vet tech and the job requirements as well. Okay, so my first tip is to ask for a position in person. It's not a guarantee, but I have found that it's a lot more difficult to say no to someone when you're telling them no to their face versus saying it over phone or over email. So, one, it's a lot more personable, and I think it makes a good impression if you go ask in person. And also, like I said, it's a little more difficult to say no to someone when they're staring at you versus over technology. Again, it's not a guarantee, but it does, in my opinion, give you like a little bit of an edge that asking over phone or over email wouldn't give you. Okay, so my second tip is to ask to be a volunteer or a job shadower first rather than asking for a paid position. And there's several reasons for this, but the first reason is that let's say that you're young, probably around 15, 16 years old. You most likely don't have any prior experience working in a vet clinic or any job experience for that. And also you're young. So employers will look at you as being somewhat of an uncertainty, and they're going to be less likely to take you on to work in a paid position than if you go in offering to do work for them for free. And with that being said, employers just in general are going to be willing to take on someone who's unpaid more willing to take on someone who's unpaid than if they're asking for a paid position, because everybody likes free work. Another thing, so that is the benefit of the employer, but to benefit you, there's two really great things about working as a volunteer or a job shadower before taking on a paid position, and it's that there's pretty much no commitment. You're not being paid for a position. So if you get there, you've never experienced working in a vet clinic before, you think you want to be a vet, you're not 100% certain though, because you don't have any prior experience. So if you get there, you start experiencing it, and you realize you just don't like the job, you don't enjoy it, you can't handle parts of it, then as I said, there's pretty much no commitment to the job, and you can always just tell them that you no longer want to volunteer there or no longer want to job shadow. So that's a great thing. If you can just get your foot in the door, try it first, rather than fully like jumping in and taking on a paid position. The second is it gives you a lot more flexibility. So you're not paid, they may tell you like what times and hours that you can come between to job shadow or volunteer, but they pretty much can't force you to stick to those times and hours consistently. So if they tell you that you can come any day of the week, like on a weekday between these hours and these hours, you pretty much don't have to go all of those days and all of those hours if you don't want to. Some places may ask you like to kind of give them a heads up of like before you come, but if you were paid, they're gonna want you there when you're scheduled to work. So that's the great thing. A lot of flexibility with just taking on an unpaid position. And as I said earlier, if you don't like it, you don't have to stay in it. So it's really great to take on maybe a volunteer position before going for a paid position. I know it kind of stinks to work for free, but if you look at the positives of it, they're there. And so you just kind of have to work with it. Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about my path towards becoming a vet tech. So when I was 14, I got my hardship. And then when I was 15, I actually went to the clinic that my family has used for generations. And I walked in there and said that I was interested in becoming a vet, and I was wondering if I could volunteer there. So that's kind of another tip that I have for you. Go in there explaining to them that you want to be a vet, or you're interested in the career. You kind of just want to see what it's like, because a lot of vets have been in your shoes. They need experience. They want to see what the career field is like. So if you go in there telling them this, then not necessarily take pity on you, but they will maybe be a little more willing to take pity on you and to accept you as a volunteer or job shadower, because they've been in your shoes. They know how important the experience is. They know how important just understanding the career is. And so if you go in there, you tell them that you're interested in the career field, then you might be more likely to be accepted. And so that's what I did. I told them I was interested in becoming a vet, told them that I wanted to volunteer, and so they accepted me. And I worked for 8 months as a volunteer. So for 8 months, I went there consistently, every Monday and Wednesday after school. So I was there for about 3 hours every Monday and Wednesday, and then they hired me. So what I did as a volunteer, it was a lot of cleaning. So I followed the doctors around every room they went to, everything that they did. After they were done, they left the mess, and I came along and I cleaned it up. But the great thing about it is that I got to watch them in the process. I wasn't having to go other places. I could stand there, I could watch them, they could teach me, and I would learn. And then once they were done with that, I would just tidy up real quick and move along with them. So I did a lot of just learning while I was a volunteer. Another thing, I got to actually help in surgeries, because when they were performing a surgery, I just stood there and then I did like 3 things in the surgeries. So I would hand them equipment, which was great. I got to learn a lot of different equipment names, what they're used for, and then I would hold things that they needed me to. So I learned about how, like, the sterile fields, how not to break them, how to keep things like remain sterile. And then lastly, I took before and after pictures of surgeries that required it. So it wasn't like a major thing, but during the surgeries, some surgeries, as I said, require before and after pictures. And usually one person has to like unglove and then re-glove and like gown up and all that stuff. Or they have to call someone from like outside of the surgery room to come take the picture. And when I was there, they didn't have to do that, because I was just a body standing there who was willing and able to help. And so it was a way for me to just get involved. And so it wasn't a super major thing, but I still feel like it was kind of important to me, but also to them. So at the point that I actually got hired, I started working as what I would call a kennel tech. I didn't have like an official title, but I would say the closest title would be kennel tech. So this is where I started getting real animal hands-on experience, because as a volunteer, I wasn't allowed to handle any animals that were awake for liability issues or liability reasons. So when I was hired, I started handling animals, and this is where I got the bulk of my initial animal handling experience, because not all animals are friendly. So I learned how to handle aggressive or fearful animals. Also, animals that were there for like rabies quarantine. You can't walk them, so you have to move them around with like the catch pole. And not all of them are aggressive, but some of them are. Even if they're not aggressive, you're not allowed to go walk them outside. So you just have to move them from run to run using the catch pole. It was a really great experience to learn just how to handle various types of animals with different types of temperaments. So that's where I got a lot of my initial animal handling experience. And it's also where I learned how to give a lot of medications, oral medications, medications that go in eyes, ears. When we would have like diabetic animals, I learned how to give like the insulin shots, sub-Q shots. So that was another great just learning experience for me. And then I did cleaning, after hours cleaning. So at the point that we closed, I would go around, mop all the areas, disinfect, stuff like that. And just a lot of cleaning, a lot. But the thing is, I learned how to actually carry out these disinfecting and sanitizing processes, because anytime we had an animal who had a contagious or infectious disease such as parvo, I learned how to actually disinfect and sanitize the run or cage that the animal had been in, and I learned how to protect myself against like zoonotic diseases. So there's just a lot of great initial experience with animals, which is really important if you're then going to work as a vet tech. So I know it's not maybe the most like appealing job to work as a kennel tech for all of you. If you want to be vets, you're thinking I'm working in a kennel, it's not learning stuff that like a vet would do. That's completely untrue, because all vets have to know these basic things: giving medication, handling animals, sterilization processes, disinfecting processes, how to keep yourself and other animals healthy. So it's extremely important, like laying the groundwork for these types of positions. So I think working at like as a kennel tech, majorly important. And I'm so glad that at the kennel or at the clinic that I work at, that they actually had me like work my way up, because now I have a really great like foundation to grow upon, and I learned a lot through each position, and it didn't feel like everything was thrown at me, because I gradually like worked my way up and learned as I went. Next, my senior year of high school, I enrolled in a class. It was called the like vet apprenticeship class. So halfway through the day, I actually got out of school at like lunchtime, and then I was allowed to go work at the vet clinic that I work at. And this is when I really started getting a lot of like vet tech, vet assistant-ish experience, because I was there for more hours of the day. So this is when I guess I would say I kind of transitioned into like a vet assistant role. I wouldn't call it quite vet tech, because I wasn't doing quite the amount of stuff that I do now, but it was a transition period, I would say. So first of all, I started getting a lot more experience in the exam rooms. I went in, this is when I was getting like history, so I would ask the clients about what's going on, get temps, get weights on the animals, those sorts of things. But I didn't know how to draw blood quite at this point. I did learn later on, but not in the beginning period. I also started learning how to do a lot of like receptionist work. So I was answering phones, making appointments, interacting with clients a lot more. And I still did a lot of cleaning, and this is why I would say I wasn't quite at the level of a tech, kind of in that transition from like kennel tech to then vet tech. And that's why I would call it in that like vet assistant title. Lastly, after I graduated high school, I started doing a lot of vet tech stuff. I was drawing blood, I was learning how to sedate animals, intubate animals, pre-sedate animals, those sorts of things. And I was working in the exam rooms almost completely. Not really working in the kennel at all, doing far less cleaning, but I was still cleaning somewhat. I still do clean somewhat. It's an extremely important job of vet staff to clean. We have to keep the place sanitary. So obviously as a tech I still clean, but I just do less cleaning than when I was in the position of like the kennel tech. So now I work the exam rooms, I draw blood, I aid in surgeries, things like that. So now that I've kind of explained the steps that I took, I just wanted to like wrap this up, talk a little bit about like if you are in the position that I was at 15, you're wanting a job, or maybe you now have got a job but you're like, oh, I'm just in the kennel, it's not really where I want to be. I feel you. I was in that position. Every time I get stuck in the kennel now, I'm kind of like, one step forward, two steps back sort of thing, because you're like, I'm still working as a tech, I'm still working in a vet clinic, but now I got stuck in the kennel. I completely understand that. Like, I feel you. It's really, really tough to start in the kennel and say like, how am I gonna become a vet when I'm just like walking dogs? But if you, like, when I take a step back and I look at everything that I learned, even just as a volunteer or a kennel tech, things like that, I learned so much, and I genuinely could not express how much it helped me along my journey to now as a vet tech. Anytime the clinic hires people and they kind of just like, now they kind of just need someone to work as a vet tech like immediately, I've noticed that it's a lot more difficult to just immediately learn how to be a vet tech versus when you kind of work your way up. And that's what I did. That's what like two of the other techs did. They started in the kennel, they worked their way up to a vet tech, and we tend to be sort of like the more proficient techs versus the ones that just get thrown into a position that they now have to figure out along the way. It's a lot harder. So if you get that volunteer position or you get that kennel tech position, then learn as much as you can. It makes the process so much easier, but make it clear that you want to work your way up. Don't be afraid to ask if you can try some of the vet assistant or vet tech duties, or if you can learn them, because letting the clinic know that you are there to learn and grow is going to help you so much along your journey. And with all that being said, I guess just know that it's okay to take it slow. That's how I did it. Let's see. It took me 7 years pretty much to get to where I am, and I still have so much more learning and growing to do, but I'm completely okay with that because I know that taking it slow and just like being there for the process helps so much. I genuinely cannot express how much it helps to just grow along the way. So don't look at it as a negative thing if you're not immediately like thrown to the top as a vet tech. It's a learning process, and learning takes time. So just know that and be okay with it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this helpful potentially, and I hope you enjoyed. Bye.